You know Caligula, the emperor who made his horse a priest, who declared himself a living god, who once said he wished all of Rome had a single neck, so he could cut it in one swing. 4 years on the throne, 2,000 years as the definition of a mad king. Here's the problem. He's famous because Rome wrote everything down, and Romans loved a scandal. But fame isn't the same as worst. Because while historians were busy gossiping about one Roman lunatic, other rulers were doing things Caligula never even imagined. Some of them killed more people before breakfast than he did in his entire reign. So today, you're climbing the ladder, 8 ancient rulers, each one worse than the last, and by the end, Caligula won't even make the podium. And I mean ancient. No medieval warlords, no modern dictators, just the old world before Rome even fell. For each one, you're getting the same 3 things. What they actually did, the number that proves it, and the exact reason they outranked the horse guy. We're going in order. Number 8 is bad. Number 1 wrote his cruelty down himself and called it an achievement. Here's the whole idea in one line. History doesn't remember the worst ruler. It remembers the loudest one. Caligula was loud. He was theatrical, Roman, and endlessly quotable. The men on this list were quieter and far more efficient. Some turned murder into policy. One turned it into a monument. Let's climb. Start soft. Around 218 AD, Rome hands its empire to a 14-year-old priest from Syria. Elagabalus doesn't kill for sport. His crime is different. He treats a 1,000-year-old civilization like his personal toy. He drags his desert sun god Elagabalus straight into the heart of Rome and ranks it above Jupiter. He marries a Vestal virgin, a woman legally sworn to celibacy, punishable by being buried alive, because he thinks it makes for good theology. He reportedly rotates through marriages the way you rotate through playlists. Fair warning, most of these stories come from the Historia Augusta, a source about as reliable as a tabloid. Take the spicy details with a fistful of salt. Why worse than Caligula? Caligula insulted the Senate. Elagabalus insulted the gods, the one thing holding a superstitious empire together. Rome's answer at 18, assassinated, stripped, dragged through the streets, and thrown into the Tiber. You think that's rock bottom, you're on step 8. Meet the emperor who turned Rome into a surveillance state. Domitian, ruling from 81 AD, wasn't flamboyant. He was paranoid. And paranoia, in an absolute ruler, has a body count. He demanded to be addressed as Dominus et Deus, Master and God. Not a joke, not a phase, a title, in writing. Then came the informers, the delatores, Rome filled with professional snitches. Because an accusation against a senator meant confiscated property and a cut for whoever reported it. Wealth became a death sentence. Late in his reign, senators started disappearing on the flimsiest suspicion. Caligula killed for spectacle. Domitian killed for safety, his own. And that's scarier because there's no logic to appease. You didn't have to do anything. You just had to be rich, popular, or unlucky. His own wife allegedly helped plan the knife that ended him in 96 AD. The Senate erased his name from every monument they could reach. Fear as government. And we're just warming up. Now the famous one. And here's the twist. Nero is famous for the wrong crime. He did not fiddle while Rome burned. The fiddle didn't exist yet. And by several accounts, he wasn't even in the city during the Great Fire of 64 AD. What he actually did is worse. When Rome burned and the public wanted someone to blame, Nero handed them a target, a small, strange new sect called Christians. According to Tacitus, he had them torn apart by dogs, crucified, and set on fire as human street lamps to light his gardens at night. Add the personal resume. He had his own mother, Agrippina, murdered, his first wife executed. By some accounts, he kicked his pregnant second wife to death. Caligula wished Rome had one neck. Nero found a whole group of necks and made a public event of it. Scapegoating turned into evening entertainment. His last words, allegedly, as the soldiers closed in, "What an artist dies in me." No remorse. Just a bad review of his own exit. You've seen this one? He's the villain from Gladiator. The real version is Stranger. Commodus, son of the good philosopher Emperor Marcus Aurelius, decided he wasn't just an emperor. He was Hercules reborn. He renamed the city of Rome after himself, Colonia Commodiana. He renamed all 12 months after his own titles. And then he did something no emperor had dared. He stepped into the gladiator arena, personally, hundreds of times. Except the fights were rigged, obviously. His opponents got wooden swords. He got steel. And when he hunted, accounts say he slaughtered caged, wounded, and even disabled people dressed up as monsters. For the crowd, the emperor of the known world, charging a man with no legs and calling it a victory. Caligula pretended to be a god. Commodus climbed into the sand to perform it, using real human lives as props. When your emperor is also the main event, there's no one left to stop the show. It ended in his own bathtub, strangled by a wrestler named Narcissus in 192 AD. Everyone so far killed for ego. Caracalla killed for volume. It started at home. To secure the throne, he had his own brother Geta stabbed to death, while Geta was in their mother's arms. Then he erased Geta from history, and according to Cassius Dio, executed as many as 20,000 of his brother's supporters. But the moment that defines him came in 215 AD in Alexandria. The city, famous for its wit, had made jokes at his expense, so Caracalla invited the young men of the city to gather, supposedly for an honor. Then he had his soldiers surround them and cut them down, thousands killed. Not in war, as punishment for comedy. Caligula threatened the people who annoyed him. Caracalla wiped out a city because it laughed. That's the leap from tantrum to organized slaughter. Here the ladder leaves Rome, because as bad as the Caesars were, they were working at city scale. The next three operated at the scale of empires. China, 221 BC. Qin Shi Huang unifies the warring kingdoms into one empire and crowns himself the first emperor. That part's genuinely impressive. The methods weren't. He decided that history itself was a threat, so according to the historian Sima Qian, he ordered the burning of the books, and then had roughly 460 scholars buried alive for disagreeing with him. Then came the construction, early sections of the Great Wall, a network of roads and canals, and his tomb, the one guarded by the 8,000-figure terracotta army, all of it built by hundreds of thousands of conscripted laborers, worked to death in numbers no one bothered to count. Caligula built a floating bridge across a bay just to prove a prophecy wrong. Qin Shi Huang built monuments out of human beings and treated the death toll as a construction cost. The punchline? He spent his final years terrified of dying, chasing an elixir of immortality. Some historians think the medicine that killed him was mercury. Persia, 525 BC. Cambyses conquers Egypt, and if the sources are right, loses his mind while doing it. According to Herodotus, he stabbed the sacred Apis bull, the living god of the Egyptians, purely to mock them. He killed his own brother, he married and then killed his own sister, and in one story, he marched an army of 50,000 men into the desert to destroy a temple, and the entire army vanished in a sandstorm, never seen again. But here's the honest part, and it matters. Almost everything we know about Cambyses comes from Herodotus, and from Egyptian priests he had humiliated. In other words, from his enemies. History is usually written by the winners. Cambyses' history was written by the losers, and they made sure he'd be remembered as a monster. Which raises the real question for number one. What if you didn't need enemies to make you look evil? What if you did the writing yourself and bragged? Assyria, 883 BC. And this is where the excuses run out. Every ruler until now, you could argue the sources were biased, written by rivals, exaggerated by the next dynasty. Fair enough, Ashurnasirpal II removes that defense completely because the man who documented his cruelty was him. He carved it into the walls of his own palace. Not confessions, advertisements. In his royal inscriptions, he brags about flaying rebel leaders alive and draping their skin over city walls, about impaling survivors on stakes around captured towns, about burning young men and women, about building pillars, one of the living, one of severed heads, at the gates of cities he crushed, so the next city would surrender out of pure terror. He wasn't hiding it. This was state policy and it worked. Fear was the Assyrian foreign minister. Caligula wanted Rome to have one neck. Ashurnasirpal would have taken him up on it and put the head on a pillar with a caption. That's the difference between famous and worst. Caligula's madness was gossip. Ashurnasirpal's was a press release. So here's the reframe. Caligula ruled 4 years and got 2,000 years of infamy because he was loud, Roman, and quotable. The men who actually did worse are the ones you'd never heard of before this video. That's the real lesson of ancient history. It doesn't hand its worst chapter to the cruelest ruler. It hands it to the one with the best publicity. Caligula got the horse and the headline. Ashurnasirpal got the empire and carved the receipt in stone.